Hey there, creators of habit. Welcome to Table to Stage. I'm Jordan Worma, and this is my podcast. It can be a little tough to bring a super visual medium to an audio format like this. So if you're in a position to be pulling up websites for reference, I suggest visiting leonardoillustration.com to get an idea of what today's guest is really putting out there. Leonardo Gonzalez is an illustrator for lots of different projects, including the T-Pub Comics title Theatrics, which was once a Kickstarter project before it actually went to publication. Leonardo's artwork is pretty great, so take a look and give him a follow on Instagram for his daily sketches. That's at Leonardo Gonzalez Art on Instagram. We tried to set up an in-person recording, but weren't quite able to make it work, so we did it by phone. I hope you enjoy hearing his story. As far as art goes, I think it's universally agreed upon that the most beautiful piece of art in the known world is the 5-star rating and review on iTunes. And you don't even have to be an artist to make one yourself. So head over to Table Stage page on iTunes or whatever your preferred podcast service is and make some art of your own. If you're not already subscribed to the pod, now is a great time to do that. And if you'd like to support the show even more, then definitely check out the Patreon page to see some additional content, including teases for some future guests. If you are interested in getting some pod swag, you can visit spreadshirt.com/table-to-stage and take a look at the Creator of Habit and Keep Creating designs available on tons of different items, from clothes to coffee mugs, penguins. Not that last one. All right, so let's get to Leonardo Gonzalez and his artwork. All right, so let's start with a little bit about where you're from. Are you originally from Connecticut, or did you come here from somewhere else?
I'm originally from Ridgewood, Queens, New
Okay.
York.
Yeah.
Um, we moved here. I was raised by my grandparents, and then we moved to Connecticut, to New Britain, Connecticut, in 2001. After the whole 9/11 thing, my family just wanted to get out of New York.
Oh, bet. Yeah.
You know that. Yeah, they had spent like 20 something years there. They were kind of tired of it and needed a new change. So it was either Florida or Connecticut.
Okay.
And thankfully it's Connecticut, because Florida's too flat and hot. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Was there any sort of like a mass migration out of New York following 9/11, or were people sort of generally rallied around the area?
I don't know. I know, like, I know we moved because of that. A friend of mine I actually met in high school also moved to Connecticut around the same time. And it's weird because he grew up like maybe like 20 minutes from me.
Okay.
That's where he lived in New York. And then it's weird. It's like, well, dude, you're like 20 minutes away from me in New York. Now we moved both to New Britain, and then we're in high school. This is odd.
Yeah. Wow.
So that was strange. Yeah.
Just a random coincidence.
Yeah.
So when you were in Queens, is that where you were living when you first got started as an artist, doing some drawing or whatever it was you got started with?
First got to start drawing, I was like 5 or 6. That's when we lived in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Yeah, and just watching my uncles draw and copying the stuff that they would draw, like Ninja Turtles, or copying like Batman comics or Spider-Man and stuff like that.
It sounds like they were drawing the same stuff I was drawing when I was younger.
Yeah. So, growing up with like people that grew up in the 80s, you got, Thundercats, He-Man, Transformers.
Yeah.
Watching movies I shouldn't have been watching when I was a kid.
Well, that's how you get all the good movies.
Yeah, like Terminator, The Thing, Alien. It's like, a kid shouldn't be watching those things.
Yeah.
But I did. So it was
one
of those.
What was it about the idea of drawing the stuff that you were attracted to initially? Was it just you saw the older influences in your life doing it and you wanted to copy them, or was there something about the actual the art
Yeah,
form, or
yeah. I think
what
it
was it that
was.
draw you there?
I think at first it was just like copying. Growing up with my grandparents, it's like my aunts and uncles were my aunts and uncles, but also like siblings.
Yeah,
It's a weird thing to grow up in because it could get explained to you, but you still have that kid brain that you don't really kind of grasp things. So it's kind of like, oh, my older brothers, they're drawing. I'm going to ask them to draw me a shark. I'm
yeah,
going to ask
yeah,
my aunt to, and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to, and it was just something to, like growing up with siblings, you want to like emulate them. You want to be like them, like your older brother. It's like, oh, he's cool. He's got big muscles. I want to work out too. Stuff like that.
right. No, were you part
Um,
of a just a largely artistic family, or was it just one or two people kind of sprinkled in there that had the artistic
no,
bug?
I think we all have our own like little artistic stuff. Like my mom has her own artistic thing. And my aunt, like we're all very crafty people from that. I guess from I don't know my grandmother's side.
Okay.
Yeah.
What sort of art forms did you end up gravitating to as you got older? Was there a certain style or maybe a specific artist whose work you were drawn to?
Um, the first major artist I was drawn to was H.R. Geiger or Giger. I don't know how you pronounce his name,
Yeah.
but he worked on he did the concept art for Alien,
Okay.
and just seeing his work it was just like biomechanical, very macabre horror, almost hellish, kind of satanic, and it's like, oh, I really like this stuff,
Yeah.
and it's just creepy and there's like bones and death, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I really like this.
Was that something that your family sort of encouraged, or were they a little bit turned off by the imagery there?
No, they encourage it. They're never really they're really vocal. I think about discouraging me in that form
Yeah.
of whatever. They were just happy that I was just doing something.
Nope.
I guess because so many people don't do anything. I don't know,
What
but
kind of impact do you think that had as you were growing up and getting more into it, having that sort of being surrounded by other people who had some artistic creativity of their own, and then you sort of developing and they're being more encouraging about it. Do you feel like that had an impact on how deeply you got into it yourself, or how your style developed?
yeah, I think it just motivated me to be better because like they only got to like a certain level, and it's like, oh, like my uncle only got to this, and my aunt only got to this, and it's like, you know what, I could do better, I could do better, I could do better, and I just kind of kept going, and then eventually I just stopped using that as like a stepping point, and just kind of kept trying to be other people,
Yeah.
trying to be as good as other people that I admired, people I've never met, and honestly don't want to meet
Is
because
that like the disappointment factor?
yeah, it ruins the mystery, and also the first Comic Con I went to, it was one of my heroes that I had met and I wanted to talk to, and he was just, I'm not going to mention his name, but he was just wasn't very good.
Yeah. Well, that's got to be
So,
disappointing.
yeah, and it's like come on, man, like I bought all your books and this, and then you're just not what I hoped
Yeah.
you'd be. It's kind of it's like if you have a crush on a girl and it's like it's all mysterious and it's like, oh man, and then as soon as you talk to her, she's just completely nothing like what you had imagined in your head, and it's like
Right.
I'd rather keep that mystery and that fantasy that nothing ever happened.
Keep all the possibility alive and never get the actual rejection from the other person.
Yeah, and it's not even the rejection; it's just the realism of just like, wow, I made you and I put you on this pedestal, and I made you this monumental thing, and you're just a fucking turd.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'd rather keep you as a something I worship and use to build myself rather than just be disappointed. And
oh yeah, I think that's pretty common.
Yeah.
At what point, as you were growing up, did you kind of notice that you had a real knack or a real skill for drawing and for artwork?
I always knew I had an ability for artwork. I just never knew what to do with it. Like I didn't know it was like a career or something you could do.
Yeah.
It's always like, oh yeah, these people draw comics and these people work on this, and then it's like, where do you go? Like, you go to school and then you get to finish school and you get hired? Is it like a nursing program, or it's like, oh, you follow these steps and then you're automatically placed into the Walt Disney, animation, and you're drawing hands for and it's like, is that how that works? And it's like, it doesn't work like that at all.
So how did it work for you? Did you end up going to study officially for this, or is it something you just completely self-taught?
Yeah, in high school, I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I just knew I liked drawing. Yeah. And then I didn't know I was going to go into the military. That's what I was going to do in high school. Like right after high school, I was going to do the Marine thing.
Yeah.
And then that summer, I almost drowned. And then I was like, I kind of don't want to do this thing. I'm just going to do the art thing and see what happens. Because like right after I almost drowned, like I don't know what the hell happened, but I just got better.
Huh.
Like things started just clicking.
Was that like you felt a new sense of urgency or something?
Yeah, maybe like a sense of urgency, or maybe, I don't know, I think like near-death things like change people.
Yeah.
I don't know, they motivate me or something. Like I had no motivation at all.
Yeah. So what was the drowning story? What happened there?
We went, it was a family thing. We went swimming somewhere and, just, we shouldn't have been there in the first place. There's like construction stuff. And then it's like, I got dragged by the current, and then I went to my sister. She got pulled in, and my cousin. It turned into this whole freaking thing.
Oh god,
so it was pretty terrifying.
Yeah, I'll bet.
But I shouldn't have been in the water with boots anyway. So
that's a pretty good rule just in general.
Yeah, it was just, trying to float and then like hitting the bottom of the water and then it's like jumping up, gasping for air, and then it's like, is this it? It's like I can't freaking breathe every time it's like, it was pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
But
wow. But so you walked away from that and kind of felt like you had to do something more and kind of buckle down on it.
Yeah, I kind of found a purpose other than just like, going somewhere and it's like, I'm just going to do it in the military and I don't know what's going to happen out there. Who cares? Honestly, I didn't really give a crap.
Yeah.
You're 16, 17, 18. It's kind of like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing in my life.
Right.
So that's kind of...
Is that about the time when you realized that maybe you could make a career out of doing your artwork?
Yeah. Yeah, that's around that time. I realized that I'm just gonna go for college. Like I couldn't afford. We had no money, so I couldn't afford paying for college straight out. I didn't take my SATs because I wasn't going to college.
Yeah.
So I went to community college, and then there, I also didn't have the grades in high school. My grades were horrible. But then in college, got pretty good grades, started getting scholarships and through, financial aid and all that stuff, paid for school. And then did really well in community college. and then applied to the University of Hartford. Got accepted. Got pretty good scholarships. They paid for half of my schooling, so I
Oh,
got
that's nice.
yeah. So like the 3.5 years I was there, instead of like was it like 40? It was like 44 grand a semester. I was paying half of that,
Oh boy.
which is outrageous. But yeah,
So did you know from the time you hit the campus that you were just going to focus on art and try to make a career out of that, or did you have a fallback plan?
oh no, there was no fallback plan. It was just
All right.
all yeah. It was just like I'm just gonna do art and that's it. And if I fall on my face, I'm right back where I was when I was 17.
Yeah. Did you feel pretty confident about that, or were you just kind of taking a
Um,
chance?
I felt pretty confident because I was like I hate sounding like I have an ego. That's not, but it's like I'm good. So
Yeah.
it's like if I'm good and I work hard, obviously I'm going to make it. Like there's no way that you're good and you work hard and you're not going to make it. That's just that equation just doesn't really add up.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
It happens, but it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it happens. It
Yeah.
does. And then you graduate school, and then it's like, oh, it's not exactly how I thought it was going to be, and then the bills and the student loans and
Yeah.
one thing after the other, and it's like, wow. So I guess, huh?
So what was there any big noticeable changes for you from the time you started studying the stuff in college to the time you finished up? Did your I mean, your talent's going to be what it is, but did your style or influences change along the way?
My style, no. I have a style, and then I also don't have a style. Like I
Okay.
like to change the style according to what I'm working on,
All right.
and also I don't like having a concrete style, even though it is there. It's like very organic and whimsically, and it's not really realistic. It's more like cartoonish, but also like sticking to one single method of doing something is really boring.
Yeah. So what is
And
the medium that you generally work in? Is it pencils? Is it paints?
the medium I generally work in for like finished stuff, it's usually ink.
Okay.
Yeah, it's usually pencil and ink, and then I'll either throw on like watercolors or colored pencil or markers or digital colors
Okay,
over
so
that.
you work in digital as well?
Yeah, just like coloring, just for the coloring purposes. Sometimes I'll sketch out ideas digitally,
Uh-huh.
just because it's a little easier. And it's like, oh, I don't feel like working on paper. Like your brain just, at least my brain gets tired of certain things. It's like, oh my god, the feeling of the paper, the sitting down in the chair, the noise the pencil makes on the paper.
Yeah.
It gets old,
Huh.
and you need kind of like the little switch just to keep things, I don't know, exciting.
Yeah. So what sort of projects have you had a chance to work on um, since you finished up studying this stuff?
Um, Mostly comic work, like indie comic work, which meant in school we learned how to illustrate children's books. It wasn't really how to draw comics.
Okay.
So,
Is that sort of like the idea of illustrating a children's book? Is that like being able to tell a story through an image, or what does that consist of?
yeah, being able to tell a story through an image, but mostly just like illustrative processes, like using watercolor, using acrylics, using oils, using different methods to tell a story. Um, Breaking down the process of illustration, like the idea, the composition, gathering up reference materials, taking reference photographs,
Okay.
doing color compositions and all this stuff, and kind of breaking it down into each individual step so that once you get from point A to point Z, you have a finished product that, in case you mess up in any step of the way, you know where you kind of messed up, and you can kind of so schooling really helped me with that. I had no idea that's how illustration worked.
Yeah. Yeah, it
But
seems like there's probably a lot more steps and a thought process that goes into it than just, taking out your pencil and sketching something out.
yeah, and just hacking away at it from beginning to end in one sitting, which is what I was used to.
So how did that translate to comics work?
I just wanted to do comics. I was just there learning how to illustrate, but really, I really enjoyed comics. I really enjoyed reading comics like Hellboy, Spawn, those type of like darkish characters.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do that. I wanted to tell a story. And then I got into comics and just kind of went into it, just head first, not really knowing what the hell I was doing, and kind of learning as I went, also applying what I learned from school into what I was getting paid to do.
Sure. Was there any sort of like a learning curve going from what you had been doing previously, with just drawing whatever you wanted to going to the not necessarily repetitive panels of a comic, but being able to draw the same character in different situations, different settings, different poses.
Oh yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's something that's very difficult. It's something I still struggle with.
Yeah, that always seems like it would be very, very difficult for anybody. Anytime I'm looking through a comic book and I think, they were able to recreate this character from all these different points of view and still, carry over all the characteristics so it's recognizable. That's got to be a hard skill to learn.
Yeah, it's pretty hard skill, something I'm still learning how to do myself, and it's difficult. Sometimes you're in the right mindset and you can bang out a couple of pages where the characters look the same, and other days they just kind of take a life of their own, and you just kind of you try and restrict them to what they are, and it's just like this guy wants to do this, and it's like, I'm just going to let him do that on the page.
Yeah. And
there's nothing, I have a deadline to meet, and sometimes people, they read the comics and they don't really notice either. They just kind of read the bubbles, they glance. It's like, all right, character A and character B, one's handing a cup over, here's some text dialogue, move on to the next pen. Doesn't really get analyzed.
Yeah, I'll sometimes get caught on a page of a comic and just staring at the artwork for, 10, 15 minutes before I realize, I got to continue this story. Sometimes the artwork is just so fascinating to me. As far as being able to implement your own style into, because you're not writing the comics, right? You're just illustrating for somebody else.
Yeah, so, I'm just illustrating.
Yeah, so how are you, I should say just illustrating, I mean, that's a big part of it, but how are you able to incorporate your style and your methods into adapting somebody else's characters and then turning all that stuff around into a visual representation of the story that's being told? I mean,
honestly, I don't even know.
Do they give you like an idea, like I want this panel to have this image in it, or is it just
the majority of the time it's just it's kind of like page 1, panel 1, character A. Let's say like for instance, when I'm working on theatrics, like Rudy is sitting at the bar, talking to the bartender. Panel 2, the bartender looks over, says, "How you doing, Rudy?" Panel 3, Rudy looks up.
Okay, so it's almost like stage direction then.
Yeah, it's stage direction. Yeah, so I'm kind of told page 1 has 5 panels, and from those 5 panels, I have to kind of direct myself. It's like, all right, which one of these is the important one? Which is the best way to show this? Which is the best way to show that? Where can I leave room for the word balloons? How much room should I leave for the word balloons? Which is something I'm not good at. I always forget the word balloons, and get yelled at, and I gotta edit a few things here and there.
Now, do you
But
have any input into as far as like if you get a splash page or any of the larger pieces put in there, or is it strictly I've got 5 panels here, 5 panels here, 3 panels here? Um, do you have some
um,
control over when the images get larger or combined?
I have, yeah, depending on the client, I have some control. I think I've gotten to the point. I think I've gotten to the point where some of the clients kind of trust what I do,
Yeah,
and then they're just like, all right, because I give them roughs of everything. I rough out the entire issue before I start drawing it, so they kind of get an idea of what I'm doing.
sure.
And then some areas they just kind of let me run with it because they're like, oh, okay, you're just gonna do what you do. You're whatever it is you're gonna do here, and we're cool with it because that works for the book.
No, do you do the pencil and ink for the comics, or do they split that up?
I do the pencils and the inks
Okay,
because that's just how I see things. There's certain things that I do with a pencil that I know are going to be done with ink a certain way.
yeah,
If I were to just do pencils, I would literally it would be the inked page, but in pencil. That's how I would pencil a page, and then it's
okay,
like, all right, I'll hand it over to the inker, and then he's just going to have to trace every single line I put on here because that's just how I see it.
yeah.
Where it's like if I'm penciling and inking, I can just kind of do like a little short form of something, and then finish it off with the inks.
Now, have you had an
And
opportunity to work with other comic book illustrators so that you have an idea of how your methods about going about everything might be a little different from theirs, or how it's generally maybe the same across different artists?
um, I haven't really worked with any other comic artists. I've studied a lot of other comic artists' works,
Yeah,
um, just by like looking at how things are broken down just for timeline reasons, just to get things moving.
sure.
So you can kind of tell it's like, oh, okay, yeah, he's only doing the pencils, and this guy's doing the inks, and this guy's doing the colors, and this guy's doing the letters, and that's just how it's broken down. Just let it flows, and it'll reach its deadline, and everything gets each step of the way is covered.
Yeah.
That way, it just keeps moving forward. Um, but I think everyone's method, as far as comics go, is different. There's no right or wrong method. There's a mainstream way of doing the comics, but if you're as far as like comics go, there's so many different things you can do. You can just do a comic with pencil. You can do it on newsprint with like charcoal. You can do it with ballpoint pen. You can do everything on cheap computer paper.
Yeah. Now,
It's all
when you first got the opportunity to work on a comic book, was that something that you were prepared to do and could just jump right into it, or did you have to do a little bit of study in advance to figure out exactly what it was that you were going to have to do?
when I first got my first comic job, I had been studying um, comic, like reading a lot of books on inking and drawing and how to draw comics, how to tell a story, watching movies over and over again,
Yeah.
um, breaking movies down, like what camera angles, the lighting, the this, the that, like movies like Alien, Predator,
Yeah.
Blade Runner, just kind of watching them in silence and just kind of, it's like, oh, okay, this shot is an establishing shot, kind of pull back. That's a medium shot. Okay, right here, Harrison Ford is talking to this character, and it's kind of a close up. Now it pulls back again, another close up. Now you get some hands, some computer. So
Right.
you notice that, like, if you turn the sound off on a movie, you actually watch the movie, actually see what the hell's going on, and there's a lot of repetition,
Oh yeah.
and you can break it.
Shot sequences are pretty much the same across
Yeah,
across any medium. You get your medium shot, your wide shot, your close up.
yeah. And it's like, oh, well, this is how you tell a story. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, look, for those details, you zoom in for conversations. You can give a medium shot, and it's like it's a little more intimate. And it's like, all right, who's the who's the dominant one, who's the submissive one in the conversation, who's the mysterious one, oh, is the one draped in shadows, or look at the purple and the pink lights kind of lighting kind of bouncing off the faces.
Yeah.
It's really interesting how comics and movies, it's almost the same thing, and it's not. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, a comic book is almost, what a storyboard for a film would be.
Yeah,
For the most part. I mean, the dialogue is going to be more fleshed out for a film than it is in a comic book, generally
yeah,
speaking. But the visuals are more or less the same.
yeah.
Did you
There's
find
certain things.
did you find anything specifically challenging about translating your style to into a comic form?
No, I didn't find translating my style into comic form difficult. What I found was learning or teaching myself how to do things that teaching myself how to pretty much anatomy, perspective, lighting,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Just like teaching myself to go from drawing massive drawings that are like 4 feet by 6 feet to doing small things on a 11-inch by 17-inch piece of paper.
Right.
That was really difficult. Very different, completely different. You go from doing like these huge gestural paintings to, okay, I got to draw this figure that's laying on a bed, talking on the phone. The panel is like 2 inches by 3 inches, and it's like, Jesus, how am I gonna? Is this big enough to fit that amount of information?
Yeah.
And it's like, and it is, and that's when you start learning to break forms down into their most basic shapes, so that it just reads.
Yeah. So
And then, and then from there, learning that also translates into bigger work, because then it's like, oh, okay, if I can make this read on a 2-inch by 3-inch square, I could definitely make that read just as well on a massive painting.
yeah. So
Yeah,
before you got into doing the comic book art, then so you were working in larger formats previously?
yeah, yeah. At Tunxus, I was looking into getting into when I was at Tunxus more into the fine art stuff.
Okay.
Just really big pieces, just to fill up like gallery walls.
Yeah.
Because if you're working fine art, you want something big. When you walk into a gallery, you want to be like swallowed by the painting that's on the wall, whatever it is. A flower, maybe a still life, or something like a huge figure, a huge anything.
Yeah.
It's like if it's big and it's got color and it's going to draw attention. Or
Yeah.
something if it's tiny, it's a little harder to compete with if it's tiny.
Yeah. So I mean, you've gone large format, you've gone comic format, and I mean those are while the artwork I guess technically is a similar process, it's a very different visual, and now you said before we started recording that you're also looking into doing some tattooing.
Yeah, I'm looking to get out of the comic stuff,
Yeah.
at least for maybe a few years. But, I mean, I've been doing comic work with clients and stuff since 2011, and also working full-time job, and then everything else that happens in between that.
Right.
And you get kind of burnt out. And there's also things that I want to draw for myself that I'd really like. I've got a bunch of tree illustrations, like sketchbooks full of them, that they're just these weird, strange, and whimsical fairy worlds and all this stuff that
Yeah, I mean, I'm
I would
looking
like to do.
I'm looking through the portfolio on your website while we're talking, And I can see very easily how your style would translate into tattoos pretty easily.
Yeah,
There's something very, I think you said before, something very organic about it, something sort of alive about a lot of the way that these look. So was there something specifically about doing your work in a tattoo format that is appealing to you?
yeah. I think I've been working for years just on separate panels to tell a whole story. There's
Yeah,
multiple little drawings on multiple pages, and multiple, and it's like I would like to just focus all that energy that I spent on 22 pages on 100 and something panels on a book. If I focus that onto one drawing, one specific drawing, and then I think it'd be incredible, especially if it's like, oh, someone comes in, oh, hey, I want this dragon with, you know, I don't know, cactuses and this and that. And it's like, oh, okay, let me just kind of throw around some ideas here and really focus on that and make a piece and put that on the skin. And it's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
yeah. I mean, it's got to be kind of similar
Different.
to the idea of the gallery showing, where you've got a piece
Yeah.
that's sort of on display, and going from the gallery wall to somebody's body is kind of. I mean, there's got to be there's a little bit of a parallel there. Somebody wants your stuff
Yeah.
hanging up for everyone to see.
Yeah. And it's also, I like just trying something different, um, going into a different medium and just starting at ground zero again.
Yeah,
It's always appealing because it's you get kind of comfortable with a certain environment, and then when you're out of that environment, you kind of feel alive again.
yeah. I mean, I guess complacency doesn't really go a long way toward creating good art.
Yeah, yeah. I always try and like make things harder for myself because there is a process to illustration, but then it's it's so easy to fall into, okay, you know, you do your sketch, you do this, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do that,
Yeah,
and it's like, all right, cool, I'm making cool ideas and making it, but it's like it almost you almost get into like an autopilot type of situation
right, right.
where it's like, yeah, it doesn't feel like you're living. So I would sometimes like purposely screw things up and just to try and make it interesting. And it's like, yeah, I know this is going to be a failure, but it's going to be fun.
Do you ever go through stretches where you're just not feeling inspired to do any drawing or creating anything?
I think I've gone through patches of periods of time where I had a hard time drawing, and also having to force myself to draw
Yeah,
because I was afraid that I'd wake up and then tomorrow I'd have to start over all over again. Kind of like if you're climbing a mountain and then it's like, oh yeah, you get up halfway and you fall asleep and then you wake up and you're back at the bottom. It was a terrifying thing.
yeah,
So I always just kept grinding away at it, and then eventually that went away, that fear. And I think the past like year, maybe year and a half, I haven't really been drawing as much.
huh.
Yeah,
So what have
like I
you?
still draw.
Yeah, what have you done? What have you been doing to fill that creative gap if you're not drawing as much?
Oh, I just kind of I don't do it so that when I do it, it it's just there's a more of a desire to do it, more of a love to do it. It
Oh, I
feels
see.
more
So you've taken
more
away
special.
the grinding part of it. You're just
Yeah,
yeah,
take,
okay.
yeah. You take away the grinding part of it, so then it's just like, oh, okay, this is my time now, and then
Right,
you kind of enjoy the process more. And it's like, yeah, I'm not afraid to lose this skill. I'm not gonna lose this skill
right.
unless I don't know, unless I get hit by a car and I don't know, something happens to my brain. I don't know.
Well, let's hope
But
nothing like that has to happen.
yeah, but like it's the fear of it going away is not there anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's just kind of like instead of working harder, now it's like all right, I can sit back and work a little smarter now.
Right.
Not drive myself to the fucking ground. Now I can just like all right, I know how to draw that. I know how to draw. I was just slow down, breathe, and then just take it through that, and there you go, it's done. And it's like 10 years ago, I would not have been able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that's just sort of a confidence that comes with time and experience?
Yeah, I think so.
Or do you think you had to really teach yourself that knowledge that you can do it?
Yeah, I think it's just reaching that point. That whole 10,000 hours type of thing.
Yeah.
Like once you reach that, and then it's like once you double that, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm confident enough that I can perform at a certain level, and even on my worst days, it might not be 100%, but it's not going to be anything lower than 80.
Right.
That's kind of how I hold myself. And even when I'm working for like clients, even if it's like a stupid little drawing, and if I can't get it, it feels like the fucking world is ending, and it's just like this horrible feeling.
Yeah, but I guess you're at the point now though where even if you do get that feeling, you know you're going to come out of it on the other side with something you're confident with.
Yep. Or it's just like, all right, I just got to step away from it. I just got to breathe. I just got to lay in the dark for a little bit, maybe sleep for a couple of days, and it'll click.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I just be in this super depressive hole, and I just keep trying to break through that wall at first, which is a really dumb way to do it. Or it's like, oh, maybe, it's like, oh, I'm going to keep trying to do it this way. It's like, oh, I don't know, maybe try climbing over the wall. Right. Hey, maybe there's a door that you're not seeing, but you're so focused on, I got to ram through this. But I think it's just being young. I think being young is you're just dumb. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing any of us grow out of that. Do you have, like, if you ever speak with, other younger artists, people that are starting out, is there anything that you generally like to tell people as far as maybe advice or resources that are available to help people not just develop skill, but to improve that confidence or the discipline to get to that 10,000 hour level?
I think I always get asked a lot, like how did I get so good? I just sound like a fucking douchebag now. I hate that. How did you get so good? And it's like, it's really just drawing. It's really discipline.
Yeah.
It takes that. It takes, like, if you take an hour every day and you just shut your phone off and that's what you do for an hour, that's it. If you sketch for an hour, within a week, you'll be better than you were on day one. And then in 2 weeks, it just keeps building.
Yeah.
And before you know it, like, oh, instead of 1 hour, let me do 2 hours. Let me do 3 hours. Let me do 6 hours and just break it up during the day.
Right.
Where now, like for me now, it's just like if I draw like 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, it feels the same as if like years ago I was drawing for hours. And that's how I would do. I would literally stay home and I draw for hours and hours and hours and hours. Let me try to figure out how to draw hands. Let me figure out how to draw eyes. Let me figure out how, and just keep grinding at it. And that's how you get it. And a lot of people, a lot of students, even people like my age, are just like, oh, how'd you do it? And it's like, you draw. That's it. There's no magic. There's no utensil. There's no like medium. There's no magic pencil. You have to sit there and you draw, and it's boring as hell. Sometimes it's really boring, and sometimes it's really interesting. There are times where I would just draw circles. I would literally just draw circles. The sketchbook pages, just circles and lines and squares and circles and lines.
Is that
And it's
just
like, I don't know why I'm doing
just to get used to your hand moving around, or was there
yeah,
some?
just to keep your hand moving around. Like even if you don't feel like doing it, you just kind of keep doing it because if you stop, then it's just harder to get yourself back going.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to the gym for like 3 or 4 months and then you just stop completely. Oh, I'm too tired.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I'm too whatever. Oh, my girlfriend is whatever. My boyfriend is. It's like even if you just go to the gym, even if you're not doing like a crazy workout, just do 15 minutes on the on the treadmill. It's still better than just completely stopping because then your brain's getting all messed up with other stuff, and it's harder to start back up from zero than it is to start back up from.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true of anything.
15 or 20 or whatever level.
So what kind of projects you have coming up that people can keep their eyes open for?
Currently working on Theatrics Volume 2 by T Publication. The writers Neil Gibson. They're a small horror comics publisher out of I believe London.
Okay.
And Volume 2 is almost done. I have one more issue to do. I'm waiting for the rough pencils, the rough sketches, like the breakdowns, to get approved, and then get the ball moving. This project has taken a while, and I've learned a lot from this Theatrics. It's my first solo graphic novel. The first volume came out, I believe, in 2017. It was a Kickstarter.
Yep.
It got funded, and now working on Volume 2. But it's just taken so long because of work, the apprenticeship, and there's life happens.
Yeah.
So
it's almost every day life happens.
Yeah, it's for me it's almost a joke at times where it's like, all right, I'm working 40 hours. All right, I get home and got to draw. It's like, wait, what's that sound? My car is doing something else. My computer when I moved, and I was excited to finally move into a place and get my studio set back up again. And it's like, all right, now my computer is fucking gone.
Yeah.
It's not working. Why is it not working? And then spending like 2 or 3 weeks trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with it. And that's that sets up the deadlines, pushes everything back. And then the tattoo apprenticeship. That's another kind of, it's like, all right, my days off from work. I have one day off to kind of do all my stuff. And then the other day, it's the gym and it's the tattoo apprenticeship. And then to go home and sleep to get up at 7 a.m. to go to work. It's...
Yeah. Well, staying busy's got to be good.
Yeah. I also can't stand still. I can't relax.
Yeah. Well,
one of those things.
It's a lost art, I think, for most people. I certainly can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like, I feel like I'm a useless piece of shit. I'm just sitting here watching TV. God damn it.
Well, that's what Netflix is for, right?
Yeah, but you need that too. You need that veg state.
Right.
And
it's a little bit of recharging goes on.
Yeah, not too much. Because then it's just counterproductive.
Right.
But,
so where can people find your work or follow what's going on with you? You have a social media or?
Yeah, on my website I have my Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr. I don't know who the hell still uses that, but it's on there.
Yeah.
My Instagram. My most active one is my Instagram.
Okay.
Just because I can post something, hashtag it, write a little thing, and just leave it.
What's your Instagram?
That's a good question.
That's all right. I'll find it. I'll find it and I'll link it somehow.
Yeah, it's Leonardo Gonzalez art.
Okay.
Is my Instagram. Yeah. So it should be easy to find. If not, just go on my website and there's a link.
Okay. Yeah, and the website is leonardoillustration.com.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I mostly stick to Instagram just because it works best for art. Twitter is just like news and stuff. And I post my drawings on there too. Tumblr, I lost my password. Nobody really uses that. That thing.
Yeah.
And Facebook is just annoying. I keep Facebook on because of my family. I've tried deleting it many times, and they just get angry because they don't have Instagram. They want to see what I'm doing, and it's like I really hate Facebook. I don't see it. It's like it's just memes, and it's just a bunch of pro-Trump,
right,
anti-Trump.
It's memes and it's complaining, and that's pretty much.
And it's like, I'm tired. I'm tired of this shit. It's like, I'm
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. There's one thing I always like to ask everybody before I let them go, and that is I like to get a recommendation from everybody for something like new and exciting that you've experienced that you think other people should try or experience somehow, and it could be from any area of life. So if you've got something that you're particularly interested in these days that you think other people should check out, I'd love to hear it.
Huh. Well, right now I'm really into keeping reptiles.
Oh.
I used to really love that when I was younger, just taking care of animals in general. And I got out of it in my teens, and then got back into it in my 30s. And it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah. What is about reptiles that's so interesting?
Honestly, it's just like watching them grow and feeding them and just watching them do their thing. Like they don't care about you. You know, it's just like, oh, you're my food man. And they get excited and you feed them and then you just put them back.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like if kids were like that, I'd have kids. But kids aren't.
What kind of reptiles do you have laying about these days?
I've got 3 turtles. I've got a salamander. I've got 4 frogs, a bearded dragon, and I think 14 geckos now.
Holy cow!
14 crested geckos. So
you've got quite the menagerie going on there.
Yeah. It's sometimes it gets really stressful.
Yeah.
And other times it helps move me because sometimes I just feel like just being a fucking piece of shit and just not doing anything. And knowing that I have things that depend on me that need food and water and cleaning.
Right.
It's just like, all right, I got to take care of my kids first because, you know, their tanks are dirty. They got to get fed. I got to go get crickets, all this stuff.
Yeah.
It kind of keeps me, it keeps me motivated and it keeps me from, I don't know, blowing my head off sometimes. But it's a good little hobby.
All right.
Yeah. It's different.
Well, how are you feeling right now?
Oh, I'm feeling great.
Okay, good.
Right now, I say dark, depressive things. I don't mean them.
That's a question I ask everyone that question.
Yeah, it's like I always get the, oh my God, is he really? And it's like, yeah, sometimes it feels that way, but not all the time. It's just like, it's normal. It's normal to feel like you strangle someone. You know, it's like, oh, that's normal.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It's not normal to act on it, but it's definitely normal to feel that way.
Yeah, it's not normal to act on it, but it's like it's perfectly normal to be like, damn, grandma, you're being a fucking bitch.
Yeah.
But you don't say it,
right?
You know, you're not going to say that. It's, you know, there's a whole other, you know, but it's like, God, man, you're being a real.
All
and
right.
It's normal. I think, I think I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time and speaking with me.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for, you know, contacting me, wanting to do the interview thing.
Oh, sure.
It's always fun.
Thank you again to Leonardo for coming on the pod and sharing his story with me. Really great stuff, and it's wonderful to see people able to follow their passions. Speaking of which, I have a recommendation for everybody this week, and it's going to be to check out another of my previous guests who recently released a passion project of his own. Joe Palladino and his recording partner Jeremy Payne recently released an EP of original, face-melting rock and roll music, which I hear is so popular with the kids these days. So check out their project Butte on iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, wherever. I mean, everything is everywhere now, right? All right, that's it for this time, you crazy kids. Make sure to leave those ratings, buy those t-shirts, and Patreon the Patreon. Is that how that goes? Anyway, until next time, keep creating.